We need to go live. All right, you guys can come to me now. That's the one. Lebo?
I don't want to fight you.
That's the one. Take it now. Take it, take it, take it. Take it. Take it, yeah. Take it. No, cue me, cue me, cue me. Lebo? Cue me. I'm going to speak over the visuals. Cue me. Take them in the big block. Yeah, I need to speak over them. Cool.
Colleagues, I'm required to confirm that flight.
Sorry, colleagues, can you just get some quiet, please?
Colleagues, I'm required to confirm officially that the flight LMG 755 from Wuhan has landed with the South African citizens. There are 146 South Africans in that flight, excluding the crew. You will be allowed to see them as they disembark and as they get into the flight. Thank you. Okay.
Elder Lewis is there. We'll be talking to her soon as we've made the connection. Criselda, what can you tell us at this moment?
These are live pictures from the international airport in Polokwane, and right there on the runway, live that aircraft carrying what we understand now is 147 South Africans who have landed from Wuhan city in China. This has been confirmed by the authorities here. Let's confirm that once again, Desiree. 100 and
the number that we are raising is the we are giving you is the number that excludes the flight crew.
Okay, thank you so much.
So that is 147. We're just speaking now to Popo, who is the spokesperson for the Department of Health. Officially, how many people are on that aircraft?
We have been informed that it's 146 South Africans, excluding the crew members.
All right, thank you very much. 146, the official number, Desiree. Speaking to the Department of Health, they were confirming exactly how many of the South Africans are on that flight. The moment has arrived, Desiree, and with much anticipation, of course, you can imagine that the South Africans who are on board that aircraft are finally touching down. Lots of fears have gripped their minds over the past few weeks. You'd know that some of them who have been on board or have been in Wuhan city have been under lockdown there for over a month. All right, confirmation, breaking news here on the SABC News channel. The aircraft that evacuated, what we know now is 100.
The crew, that excludes the crew. So it's 114, 18 crew members, 14 medical, and 3 embassy staff. 114 plus 18 crew members plus 14 medical staff, including 3 embassy staff.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, some details there from authorities once again. If you've just joined us here on the SABC News channel, live pictures of the aircraft that went to evacuate the South Africans from Wuhan city in China. The moment certainly has arrived for them. Quite a lot, Desiree, that still needs to happen before they disembark from that aircraft. We understand they will once again be tested, and the necessary precautions would need to be done before they can disembark from there. All right. You would recall, of course, that the South African government had indicated that it was prioritizing the South Africans in Wuhan city. That is the area, of course, where the virus, the coronavirus, was first detected. And South Africa is saying there was no plans in place at this stage to have its citizens evacuated from any other parts of the areas that may be deemed high risk. But certainly I think today this one would be a clear demonstration of the South African government's willingness to ensure that those in some of the most risky areas there, Desiree, are going to make it home. All right, you can see there the aircraft itself, South African Airways flight. You'd recall, Desiree, there had been a lot of speculation about whether it would be a military aircraft. South African Airways embarking on this journey, a mammoth task indeed. They'd been at the epicenter of this coronavirus, only on the ground for 8 hours. And Desiree, from what was happening in that aircraft before they left Wuhan city, there was a lot of precautions that had been taken. You have a look there, you would see some on the tarmac. On the runway itself, there are about 4 men who are walking there in white suits, and obviously that's part of the protective gear that the South African government has ensured that those who are participating in this evacuation process, and now the ones who are heading to the aircraft, have all that protective gear on. Once again, you'll see 4 men there walking towards the aircraft, and a lot, not many personnel allowed near that aircraft, and I'm sure there are processes now that are going to follow to ensure that the necessary safety precautions are taken before they disembark from that aircraft. These are live pictures from the international airport here in Polokwane. Breaking news, the aircraft that left South Africa to evacuate its citizens from Wuhan city in China has landed, and now from this point the necessary precautions that I speak of, Desiree, speak about the tests that would need to be done, some screening that will need to be done on board that aircraft first before they disembark. And I cannot begin to imagine, Desiree, I mean, after being under lockdown for more than a month, you finally arrive on home soil, and one can certainly not paint a picture at this point unless you speak to those affected South Africans, not infected but affected, in the sense that they were the ones at the epicenter of where this virus had broke out, and their request to be brought home is finally being fulfilled here today. Many questions about when it was going to happen. Remember, President Cyril Ramaphosa had indicated this should happen over 7 to 10 days, and here it is now, the South African Airways flight from Wuhan city in China. That evacuation finally coming to an end now, but it doesn't just end here. 21 days they will move from here and be taken to the ranch resort, which is about 21 kilometers away from the airport. 21 days quarantine there, the incubation period 14 days, and the remainder of that, of course, all but precautions. We must stress or overemphasize, Desiree, that according to the South African government, this this aircraft, which has landed here, is carrying South Africans who are healthy. And they're saying that none of the South Africans on board this aircraft have tested positive for the coronavirus or have gone to hospital with symptoms associated with the coronavirus.
Just in terms of protocols.
The spokesperson once again. Desiree, just hold on for a second. If I could just bring in the spokesperson of the health department. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Let's get more clarification on the total number that you spoke about.
Well, the total number is 114 South African nationals, 18 crew members, 14 crew members and 18 medical staff. The total, I still have to work out the total, but 3 embassy members as well. So we did have late cancellation and some late confirmations.
Popo, I mean, you guys have been working on this for a very long time, and I'm sure right now the South African government is quite pleased that the aircraft has finally landed.
It is a moment of pride for South Africans. At least we prevailed. We are bringing our citizens back home, and no one who's in that flight is forced to come back. They all wanted to come back, and government had to reach out.
So again, the process from here, they will disembark. They will be screened before they leave the aircraft. Talk us through that process.
Yes, they will be screened on arrival. There will be no contact with the airport staff. From the flight, they're going straight into the buses, and on site there are medical staff already, and they will be checked and taken to their rooms.
All right, thank you very much indeed for your time. A moment of pride as described by the health department, that finally this, the evacuation that had been planned. I understand it was, Desiree, a mammoth task to have this mission completed. There were many things logistically that the South African government had to comply with in China before this mission could even get off the ground here from South Africa and head to Wuhan city and be there for a few hours and then leave Wuhan city and return to South Africa. Desiree, you were trying to engage with me there. Please proceed.
Protocols required, just in terms of how far you are allowed to be from the aircraft.
Well, Desiree, we are at the viewing deck at the international airport here in Polokwane. This is as far as we can get. I must say that the South African government had tried to arrange for us to get a bit closer, but I think it's much better off here where we are. You would see also, if my colleague Llewellyn could zoom in there a bit, you'd see underneath the aircraft there some of the personnel who have gone towards the aircraft in the white protective gear there, which is a clear indication that all the necessary procedures have been taken by the South African government to ensure that all the tests are done, screening is done before they disembark from that aircraft. So that moment, all the planning and the logistical, I don't want to say nightmare that the South African government has been through, but certainly at this point it could be a moment of pride, and I cannot begin to imagine the relief of those South Africans that are on board that aircraft, many of them for some time now calling for government to act and saying they want to become part of those who are on that aircraft are a group of South African students who had graduated from the university in Hubei province. So they've already graduated. I've seen some of their graduation certificates. They won't be going back to China, but a moment moment of pride for them. And I think, you know, the plans that the South African government had put in place, and, you know, I understand around the clock working to try and ensure that it does come to fruition. That's exactly it. It all emanates to what we're seeing here today. In case you've just joined us on the channel, live pictures from the international airport in Polokwane as the South Africans evacuated from Wuhan city in China have finally touched down on South African soil.
Colleagues from other media as to how much they've been given as access, but we do know that they themselves are not allowed.
Desiree, just a few moments ago we had been speaking to the Department of Health's spokesperson, Popo Maja, and he was just explaining to us that it's going to take a little bit of a while before they disembark from that aircraft. I think everyone is watching very closely about, you know, what procedure the authorities will take now that this aircraft has landed here.
And this is the continuation is something that they have prepared for days before this happened. But
Griselda, I think we need to re-emphasize
also there.
That they have indeed.
Yeah.
Just that we need to re-emphasize that the people, the entire component of people on the plane are healthy people.
But they are not expecting any hiccups in terms of anyone being sick.
Well, that's right, absolutely, Desiree. You know, you can obviously understand there had been some panic from some quarters about the health condition of those who are returning to the country. Government has overemphasized that all those South Africans on board that flight are healthy. And you would recall there would have been a necessary procedure that would be followed even before they got on that aircraft. They had been screened before they got on the aircraft to ensure that none of them had symptoms related to the coronavirus. If any of them had shown any of those signs, they would have, of course, been referred together with the agreement South Africa has with the Chinese on what would happen next. But we can certainly say at this time all information that has been communicated by the South African government indicates that every single one of those individuals who is on that aircraft is healthy. They do not at this stage you know, have any symptoms related to the coronavirus. And Desiree, the South African government would obviously need to take all the necessary precautions, because you don't want to deal with a situation where, with South Africa standing with 24 confirmed cases of the coronavirus at this stage, containment would be very key to what happens. The South African government cannot afford a spread of the coronavirus, so all the necessary precautions at this stage seem to have been taken to ensure that there isn't any criticism of what has been done here. I think much of the focus right now is very much on the fact that it's been a successful mission to begin with, to get those South Africans out of there. Can you imagine the kind of nightmare it would be to have you repatriate your citizens from you know, one of those high-risk areas? A lot of logistical issues being taken into account. We kept on asking as the media when it was going to happen. So all of that now culminating in this arrival. I mean, I managed to see some of the social media posts just before they took off from Wuhan city, and Desiree, I can certainly tell you that the social space that they had been given is quite far apart from each other. Others also wearing some protective gear, and the evacuation team also in the white gear that you see those men there just underneath the aircraft wearing. So South Africa certainly cannot afford a situation where its citizens who are arriving, there may be any suspicion that you know, they could be ill or could have symptoms of the coronavirus. So a lot of work, I guess, still needs to be done from here. They will, of course, head to the ranch resort, where there's another medical team there, Desiree, which will also go through the very same procedure. You know that entire area has been under lockdown. I'm sure you will speak to my colleague Sophie Mukwena in just a short while. She is stationed there. So we'll try to bring it to you right from the airport en route to the ranch resort. And once they get behind those gates, that's it, Desiree. That is a no-go area, and the media or anyone else is not allowed in that space. You would know, of course, they are not allowed to be with their families for the next 21 days. But much consolation, I can certainly tell you today that their loved ones are back in the country. Another 21 days for a precautionary, very important to stress, Desiree, precautionary behind or being isolated there for precautionary reasons. The South African government quite clear that it must follow all the necessary procedures, also to allay a lot of the fears that others may have. You'd know that over the past week, our colleagues here in the province have been reporting about dissent in some quarters, but a re-emphasis, Desiree, from government that there's nothing to worry about. There's no need to panic. This is something that South Africa needs to demonstrate about keeping its citizens or caring about its citizens and going to evacuate them from where the coronavirus had first broken out.
On the other side of the aircraft, seeing that the staircase where those passengers are expected to disembark is on the other side, but that bus, Jeremy, on your visual.
All right, Desiree, 2 buses so far, I'm sure you will see. Those are the buses that will then take the South Africans to the ranch resort. And I've counted 2 buses now, Desiree, where these South Africans have arrived will then disembark from that aircraft. And that is the bus then will go by road, of course, and head towards the ranch resort, which is about 21 kilometers away from the airport here in Polokwane. It will, of course, be escorted by the South African Police Service together with the South African National Defence Force. And we understand that there is a particular route that it will take. All right, we should expect them to be to disembark Desiree. We'll bring you those pictures live here on the SABC News channel. Stay with us.
Within that fashion, because there are a few buses that are stations on the outskirts of the runway, if I may put it in that way, and seeing that one of them has approached means that they will be taking the first batch of people. There is an arrangement that they've made to ensure that aircraft inside this particular transporter, the aircraft and the bus will continue.
We can see that a lot of precautions is being taken.
Let's bring in once again Popo Maja from the Health Department. He will explain a bit more about what's expected to happen now.
What's going to happen from now is that they are going to get into the buses. The crew that is on the bus is well protected. They are not going to be going to the quarantine. It is only the citizens and the medical staff on board, including the crew, that is going to go on quarantine. So right now they are going to get into the buses. As they arrive on the quarantine side, they will be checked and taken to their rooms. And the medical staff of the Defence Force is on site, and that is the place that the media is not going to be allowed to be in.
Help us understand when they get tested or
We're just going to ask Popo Maja whether they'll be tested. We know that they will be screened before they disembark.
Who's on site, who's on the plane, has been asked the questions that would actually detect as to whether they are still feeling okay. And from there, if there is anyone who's feeling unwell, that person on site will be isolated. But right now, all of them are okay, according to the reports that we get from our medical staff that is on board, that everybody who's on board is well.
There's about 2 buses. Are those buses?
All right, Desiree, just some additional information there from the spokesperson for the Department of Health, Popo Maja, who's of course telling us that exactly what I described, that you're going to have each and every one of them tested tested inside, or rather all of them will be screened just before they disembark from that aircraft. They will disembark possibly quite shortly, because you can see one of the buses there. Oh, there they go. Here they arrive, disembarking from the aircraft. The South Africans evacuated. Breaking news here on the SABC News channel. The South Africans who have arrived from Wuhan city in China, disembarking from that aircraft. You see some of them carrying some of the little that they've been allowed to carry on that aircraft. There were specific kilograms, you would understand, of luggage that they were allowed to carry. Breaking news now, disembarking from that aircraft. The South Africans evacuated from Wuhan city in China. So they are now being directed to the bus there. There you have it. Some of them are already making their way on to the bus. And I guess the journey begins, Desiree, to that 21 days under quarantine here outside Polokwane at the Ranch Resort. And I cannot imagine, Desiree, again, I have to overemphasize, you know, having worked on this particular issue for quite a while, and the distress that many of them have gone through. Some of them that we spoke to live on SABC News from Wuhan city. I cannot tell you what they could possibly be going through at this moment, that they've finally arrived in South Africa. So breaking news, the pictures you're seeing now live, South Africans who have arrived in the country from Wuhan city in China, where the coronavirus was first detected, are making their way into that bus. And that bus then will travel from here to the Ranch Resort, about 21 kilometers away from the international airport here in Polokwane. You'll also see there the men who are much closer to the aircraft in those white suits, protective gear. They, of course, that again, necessary precautions that have been taken by them, by the South African government, to ensure that even those who will be working very closely with those who have arrived also protect themselves.
Challenges, one being the distance from the airport, particularly the one in
Desiree, I doubt I'm going to be able to hear you, so I will just continue at this stage. A mammoth task for the South African government to evacuate its citizens from Wuhan city in China. And, you know, Desiree, over the past few weeks, the pictures that we've seen come out from there, the experiences, I'm sure, which they will tell after the quarantine period has lapsed, is one that we've already highlighted here on SABC News, where some of the students who were attending some classes at the university in Hubei province, indicating they'd been under lockdown at that university, and basically they didn't have much interaction amongst each other. They'd been in their rooms for 24 hours a day, and at some point, you know, little complaints here and there about food, having access to food. So the South African government had also indicated that those who needed special medication, also during a period where you had the lockdown itself, was that they then would have sent that medication that was much needed by some of those who did not have access to crucial medication, and all the steps had basically been taken to ensure, through communication with the Chinese government, that all the necessities, emergency necessities that may have been needed by some of them, including some medication, would have been sent to them.
But of course, the virus was something that was unanticipated at this stage, and that is why I see this visual today to say the president himself